So now, without further ado, I know the gentleman that you all came to see, standing to my left. I am not one for big introductions to read what you probably already read in the press release all over again. So I will simply do this and thank Trevor Loudon for joining us tonight and turn the program over to him.
Thanks very much, Christian. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Can you understand the genuine Southern accent? Really? Look, if you can't, let me know, because we hear American English all the time on our TVs, but I doubt you hear a Kiwi accent very often. So we have a few different words, you know. But thanks for inviting me here today. It's a real honour to be here. First time I've spoken in North Carolina. I've driven down I-95 a few times, but I've got a good look around the state and I'm looking forward to seeing more. Beautiful place. And look, I'm a little bit rusty. This is my second speech of this tour. I've done 5 tours of the United States, spoken to more than 200 Tea Party groups. I come on a 90-day visa. I'm very tempted to stay 91 because I'm told I'll get a free cell phone and help. So I'm eager to try it out. Right, well, the thing that people always ask me is why do I care? Why do I care about the politics of the United States? And I live 12,000 miles away. Well, there's 2 basic reasons. The first is simple gratitude. You know, my country was only saved in World War II from invasion by the Japanese by the huge sacrifice of your fathers and uncles and grandfathers in the battles of Guadalcanal and Midway in the Coral Sea. And that memory is still very strong in my country. The second reason is related, but a little more selfish. You know, people down my neck of the woods, we're a bit cocky. We think nobody's ever going to touch us. But already, the Chinese are training the Fijian military, 1,500 miles to the north of our country, building big hydroelectric dams on the islands. Fiji is now a Chinese client state. Right, they're moving into Tonga, they're moving into islands right through the South Pacific. We know that if your Navy stops patrolling the South Pacific, China becomes a the South Pacific becomes a Chinese lake. And they will not be as benevolent to us as you are, that's for sure. Now, all around the world, your allies are looking at you right now and are freaking out.
Yeah.
You know, Israel, Germany, Britain, Canada, South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Australia, they're all freaking out because they see that your president seems to love the bad guys of the world more than he loves them.
Amen.
And that's causing huge amount of instability. Japan, which was never supposed to rearm after World War II, is now rearming because they cannot trust your president to protect them from North Korea and China. Israel has its back to the wall now. No friends left in the region at all, thanks to your president's meddling. And they may be forced to take desperate measures to defend themselves, and those measures could put us into World War III. Your allies, the first thing your president did when he took office was to remove the missile shield protecting Poland and Czechoslovakia. Those countries that fought so hard to get out of Moscow's grip were delivered straight back by your president. He then sold out Georgia, he's selling out Israel, he's selling out Taiwan, and he's selling out Japan. You see where things are going when your president called for help to go into Syria. All your allies lined up, right? She couldn't wait to get on board. Just really wanted to get on board. And I'm not saying they should have by any means. The Syrian adventure is just madness. But it just shows where American prestige is going. You know, Vladimir Putin, the old KGB man, who spent most of his career trying to destroy your country, is now looked as more of a statesman in the world than the leader of the free world is. Now, if you don't think that has serious implications, folks, I don't know what you think is serious. Because the bad guys of the world are getting bolder and bolder. China is flexing its muscles. Russia is rearming. They're working together with Iran, with Cuba, with Nicaragua, with Venezuela, with North Korea, all against you, together with radical Islam. It's not a bunch of separate threats, folks. They are all working together, and guess who the number one enemy is?
Us.
You guys, folks. Because they know if they can take you down, they can do anything they damn well want. If America goes down, folks, every Western country falls. Forget about going to Honduras or New Zealand. You know, the Australian Defence Minister was up in China for talks recently. And publicly, a retired Chinese general said to him, now it's the time for Australia to choose. Do you stay under American protection or do you come under Chinese protection? If you are smart, you'll choose China because we are the growing power in the region. And all of your allies, folks, are facing similar choices right now. Because they look at America and they look at Obama and where he's heading and they cannot trust him. That has serious implications for all of us. You know, we've only had relative peace in this world for 60 years because of peace through security. Now when that security goes, so will the peace. Mark my words. Now, I'm out promoting my latest book, my first book, Barack Obama and the Enemies Within, all about Obama and his communist ties, was more than 700 pages. And I got sick of lugging that around the country, I can tell you. It's about that thick, right? And I promised my second book, which is The Enemies Within, Communists, Socialists and Progressives in the US Congress. I promised it would be thinner. But it's not, it's even bigger. Okay? Because those bloody commies just kept on coming. Okay? And virtually every state's represented. Mel Watts, you couldn't leave him out, could you? In all fairness. So he's in there, so is Jim Clyburn from next door. So the book is basically about two things. There are two secrets to modern communism. The first secret they borrowed off the devil. Because the cleverest thing the devil ever did was to convince people he doesn't exist. And what have the communists done in the last 20 years, folks? They don't exist. And if they do, they're no longer a threat, right? We all know that, don't we? And that's what we base our defence policies on, right? Of course we do. The other big secret of communism is and this is very seldom written about, if ever, it is the ability of a tiny Marxist-Leninist party to take Moscow or Havana's or Beijing's policies and by using organisations under their control, getting those policies adopted by the local Social Democratic Party, the British Labour Party, the German Social Democratic Party, the French Socialist Party, the Canadian Liberal Party, or the US Democratic Party. So what I'm saying is that in this country, less than 20,000 card-carrying Marxists are able to dictate the policies of the Democratic Party, the laws, and write the laws that influence the lives of more than 300 million Americans. A little bit far-fetched, isn't it? Well, you would have, if I'd said that 10 years ago, you would have laughed me out of the place. Maybe not so much now. But how do they do this? The key is the labour unions. Now, you were very lucky in America for a long time because your unions were run by hardcore anti-communists like Lane Kirkland and George Meany. Whatever their faults were, they kept the Reds out of the unions. But in 1995, there was a coup. the most significant coup in your history in the last 50 years. Because that was the year that Democratic Socialists of America, your biggest Marxist group, took over the AFL-CIO. They got rid of Lane Kirkland and they made their member, dear Sayer, John Sweeney, president. And now their man, Richard Trumka, is carrying the flag for him. Now what that did was to give the labour unions control of the Democratic Party. And because the Marxists controlled the labour unions, that effectively gave them control of the Democrats. That's why in the last 15 years, all the old conservatives and moderate Democrats like Joe Lieberman have been purged. The Democrats have gone way, way to the left because that was in 1995, the communists took over the unions. And there's hardly a Democrat in this country at any level who does not owe his job to the labour unions. So how it works is this. The communists set a policy. It might be comprehensive immigration reform, Obamacare, green jobs, normalisation of relations with Cuba, whatever it is. They set the policy, they make it Labour Union policy, and the Labour unions make it Democratic Party policy. Every major policy on the Democrat platform right now comes from the Communist Party USA and Democratic Socialists of America. Every single one. Absolutely. Now, you know, that sounds theoretical, it's just me talking. But I want to give some examples. Now, make it a little bit more credible. And I'll start with one from my own country, New Zealand. Any ex-Navy men here at all? No? Okay. Navy woman, sorry. Okay, fair enough. My mistake. Look, some may remember back in 1984, my country banned nuclear warships from our harbours. That destroyed overnight the Australia-New Zealand-United States military alliance, ANZUS. Killed it stone cold dead, still dead today. Now look, my country, pro-American, loves America. We all remember how we were saved by your country in World War II. So how come 25 years after that, or whatever, my math ain't too good, how come we could so willingly turn our backs on America and basically kick you out of our harbours? Okay, this is how it was done. This is how it was orchestrated. A few years after that, I had the privilege over several months of interviewing a New Zealander who had infiltrated the New Zealand Communist Party for our security intelligence services, our FBI. He was a government spy inside the Communist Party. He rose right through the ranks, and in 1983 he was given the greatest honour any communist could enjoy. He was sent to Moscow to train at Lenin's Institute for Higher Learning in Leningradsky Prospect, the Lenin School. Went with 3 other comrades. Spent 3.5 months there. Now at this school, this wasn't a small place, folks, there were 6,500 students at any one time. Some of them on 7-year courses, some of them with one-to-one tutelage. This was a training academy of the future world communist leadership. When Nelson Mandela was inaugurated, when he became president of South Africa, my friend recognised 3 people from the Institute standing behind Mandela. Mandela, who himself was a member of the Central Committee of the South African Communist Party. Now, all these people were taught a lot of things. They were taught Russian history to build loyalty to Moscow. They were taught espionage techniques, racial agitation, labour union building. But the most important thing they were taught was how to take Moscow's policies back to their home country, and by using the labour unions and the churches and the peace movement to turn Moscow's policies into law in their own countries. And that was done countless times. This was Moscow's main method of influencing foreign countries. They did it all the time. So this was the time of the massive anti-nuclear marches through Europe. Hundreds of thousands of people marching through Rome and Berlin and Paris with big ban the bomb banners, get America out of Europe, disband NATO every weekend for months. And there was a real fear in some circles that NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which you guys are the linchpin of, might disband. And of course the Soviets were funding and directing all of this because they wanted to destroy NATO. And I'll tell you straight, your military and your military alliances in 1983, as in 2014, are Moscow's #1 target. Because they knew then, and they know now, if they could disband them and take them out, they could take you out. They could dominate Europe, dominate the Pacific, dominate Asia, isolate you, and eventually take you down. And I'll tell you the most significant thing your president said in his first term of office when he was caught off mic in Korea with Mr. Medvedev: when I get re-elected, I'll have more flexibility to deal with you. And Medvedev says, yes, I understand. I'll pass your message on to Vladimir. We are with you. Damn right he's with them. Damn right, because Obama has done more damage to your military than virtually any standing army on this planet could hope to achieve. And Moscow and Beijing and Tehran and Havana love him to death for it. Love him to death. Okay, so this was going on in Europe. And the Soviets were thinking, okay, we want to disband NATO, but how about the chess players are subtle? How about we take away another country out of the Western Alliance outside of Europe and use the propaganda value of that to help destroy NATO? So they picked on New Zealand because we're small, socially progressive, you know, punch above our weight on the world stage, human rights record, and we really think we're important. They can play to our egos. Now they knew that to get us out of ANZUS, they couldn't play the anti-American card like they would in Latin America, because New Zealanders love America too much. They would have to do something different. They'd have to sell it differently. And when I say sell, I mean sell, folks. If you think American corporations are good at marketing, they got nothing on the Russians. When they target a country, they have a whole raft of experts to draw on. Psychologists, sociologists, historians, religious experts. They know South Carolina and the racial, political and religious makeup of your state better than you do. They know what will play here. They know what will play in Nebraska and New Hampshire and Florida. They know it all, folks. So they brought in all their experts and they thought, how are we going to sell this to New Zealand? Can't do the anti-American thing, they knew that. But they thought, you know, New Zealand's small, ego thing, little man syndrome. We're going to play this as a patriotic New Zealand thing. So they come up with a bunch of slogans. New Zealanders standing against a nuclear arms race. Kiwis standing up for peace. New Zealanders striking an independent foreign policy course. Worked out the slogans. These 4 delegates went back to New Zealand, held secret meetings with the Labour Party, secret meetings with the peace movement which they controlled, with the labour unions which they also controlled, and also infiltrated the Labour Party, mounted a public campaign, and in 6 months legislation was put in front of our Parliament, it was signed off, and nuclear warships were banned from our harbours. And at that point, ANZUS was dead. The Soviets could not believe how quickly it went. They couldn't believe it. And I'll tell you today, if you talk to a New Zealander, most of them, you say, what about that anti-nuclear thing back in 1984? What do you reckon about that? I say to you, they will puff out their chest with pride, say, yeah, we did it. We stood up for peace. We charted an independent course. They'll be so proud of it. And not one New Zealander, hardly in 4 million people, has any idea that those policies they're so proud of came from Lenin's Institute and were designed by the KGB. A whole country was suckered. But could this happen in America? Could it possibly happen here? You might believe that. I bet you most people out there wouldn't. I'll give you some examples. I'll start with a small one first. Now, and I'm giving you both barrels tonight, folks, because I'm getting wound up, all right? Any Vietnam veterans in the room? Thank you. This might make you a little bit angry, this one. Now, last year, the communist ambassador from communist premier of Vietnam came to Washington and had a talk with Obama. And during that little visit, Obama made an interesting statement. He said it's a well-known fact that Ho Chi Minh, Uncle Ho, the communist leader of Vietnam during the war, was a huge admirer of Thomas Jefferson and the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
We all know that, right? Okay. Well, there's a little element of truth to that, but the fact that Obama even knew this story, and the fact that he was raised at the knee of a communist propagandist, Frank Marshall Davis, tells me where Obama's coming from. Because this is a real story, folks. Uncle Ho was a hardcore Stalinist, trained at the Lenin School, Communist Party member for more than 20 years, had the blood of thousands of his own people on his hands. He was hardcore. Now, during World War II, Uncle Ho was fighting the Japanese invaders with his communist guerrillas. And he had help from the Office of Strategic Services, your American intelligence, the forerunner of your CIA. And that was legitimate because, you know, your CIA, your OSS was also helping Mao against the Japanese in China. Now, incidentally, the OSS was full of communists because Wild Bill Donovan deliberately recruited members of the Abraham Lincoln Brigades, the American communists who fought in the Spanish Civil War, because he wanted people with US military experience. And just note that name too. Those American communists didn't fight as the Karl Marx Brigade or the Vladimir Lenin Brigade. They were the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. Just like the communists had an Abraham Lincoln School in Chicago and a Jefferson School in New York. They always hide their revolution behind your revolutionary icons. But okay, Uncle Ho fought the Japanese. They got rid of the Japanese. The next step was to get in the revolution was to get rid of the French colonialists who came back to take their colony back after the war. Now Uncle Ho was thinking, the Americans helped me against the Japanese, I'm going to con them into helping me against the French. Because he knew that FDR didn't like the French very much. Okay? But he knew he had to get American public opinion on his side. And he wasn't going to do that if he went around spouting about Marx and the dictatorship of the proletariat. But he could do it if he went about talking about Thomas Jefferson and the Declaration of Independence. Which is what he did. All over Vietnam. Did a big rally in downtown Hanoi in front of thousands of people, OSS officers dotted all around. I'm a huge fan of the American Revolution. Thomas Jefferson is my revolutionary idol. The American Declaration of Independence is the model for our revolution. All total garbage, designed to suck you in to supporting him against the French. And that's what Obama was talking about, folks. And he would have known the reality of that. Now FDR was going along with that, but he died. And a real Democrat named Harry Truman took office. And he was nowhere near as stupid. He would not have a bar of Ho Chi Minh. Told him to get lost. So Uncle Ho got the Russians aboard, and you know what happened next. But that's the story there. Now Obama also made another statement during that meeting, which was significant. He said Americans need to get on board with repairing the damage done during the Vietnam War. Now what that means is you have to pay reparations to Vietnam for the damage done by Agent Orange and bombing that you guys did over there fighting off a communist invasion. Now I'm a bit old-fashioned, but I thought reparations were what the bad guys pay to the good guys. Isn't that how it goes? So why are you, who supported people being invaded, paying reparations to the invaders? Why is that? Well, why that is because for several years in this country and in Australia and New Zealand, there's been a campaign orchestrated by the Vietnamese. They've set up organisations in your country. It's called the Vietnam Agent Orange Reconciliation. Oh, it's just gone out of my head. The Vietnam Agent Orange Reconciliation Campaign, I think it's called. It's all in my book anyway. And they are run by the Committees of Correspondence, which is a breakaway group from the Communist Party USA. Their most famous member is Angela Davis. Afro haircut, murder charges. Now this group is pro-Vietnam. So they've set up this little front group and they've been lobbying your congressmen and senators and got them on board to pass legislation in your Congress paying reparations to Vietnam. And they're moving that forward now, folks. Still going forward. They've got Tom Harkin on board. They've got Jeff Merkley on board out of Oregon. They've got Sheila Jackson Lee out of Texas. John Conyers, surprise, surprise. They got a few more as well. They also, while he was still a congressman, before he became mayor of San Diego and got in the spot of Bob Filner, the son of the head of the Pennsylvania Communist Party, by the way. They got him to go to Vietnam to negotiate these reparations a couple of years ago. That trip was paid for by the International Association of Democratic Lawyers, an old Soviet front now run by the Cubans. A communist front paid a serving US congressman to go to a communist Vietnam to negotiate reparations from your country to theirs. Now the worst thing is, folks, it won't even go to their veterans. It'll just go to the Vietnamese government to do what they want with. Now how many people do you know in this country, folks, still suffering from the effects of Agent Orange?
Oh, wow.
I know them in my country. How long did it take them to get any money, folks? If any. All sorts of, and their children are still suffering. There's never enough money for those people, but your president thinks there's enough money to send it to Vietnam to bail out their country. That's happening now, right now, orchestrated by a Communist Party of 300 members, right now. Does that make you a little bit angry?
Yeah.
Should hope so. The chapter in my book is called The Vietnam Scam, and that's what it is. These people are even going around veterans groups talking about this. Don't tell them they're communists though. Now, there's another bigger scam going on that you might have heard of. Anybody heard of Obamacare? One or two of you? Good to see you keeping up. Okay. Now look, I know it's not fully socialised healthcare yet. Does anybody think that's not where it's heading? Look, they've admitted it. Schakowsky's admitted it. Harry Reid's admitted it. It's going to single payer. And the worse it gets, the better they love it. Because they're going to blame the doctors and the greedy insurance companies, and the only answer is going to be state-run healthcare. And I'll tell you who's behind this, folks. It's an organisation called Democratic Socialists of America, 7,000 strong. They've been pushing this for 40 years. They are the people behind this 100%. Now, just digress a little bit, is I come from a country that's had socialised healthcare for more than 50 years. And I can tell you it sucks. It sucks very big time. Now, you know, waiting list, you know, it's just normal, you know, 3, 5 years, whatever. People die on them all the time, all the time. But you think about this, you know, people still say to me, oh, you look, you know, what about pre-existing conditions and, you know, the uninsured and it's fair, everybody gets a, you know, chunk of the pineapple. You know, it's all fair. Well, look, the big thing they all forget, the big thing the Liberals all forget is quality. And is there any more important word when it comes to your healthcare? Is there? Now, okay, if you're in a free market healthcare system, and I know you don't have that, but at least you have elements of it. If you're in a free market system, you are a customer. And your doctor sees you as a customer, and he wants to keep you alive because that pays for his holidays. Right? You people in business, how do you treat your customers? Like gold, right? You love your customers. You make friends of your customers. That's how American business runs. And it's great. It's a benevolent system. But if you're in a single payer system where the government pays all the bills, right, the budget is this big, but the needs are infinite. So what do you then become? You become a liability. And you people in business, how do you treat your liabilities? You eliminate them, right? You don't need death panels, folks. Forget death panels. Every doctor in every hospital will become his own death panel. If you've got a fixed budget in your department for chemotherapy, and you've got a 75-year-old guy here who needs $100,000 worth of chemotherapy to extend his life 3 years, and you've got a 7-year-old girl here who needs $100,000 worth of chemotherapy to save her life, who are you going to do it? Who's going to get the treatment? What humane person? You're going to give it to the girl, right? What else would you do? Because you have a fixed budget. You have to triage. You have to ration. How can it work any other way? In my country, we don't call it rationing. We just know if you're old and not paying taxes and are a useless eater, you don't get the same level of treatment as someone who's young and paying taxes. We just know that. We just accept that as normal, as they do right throughout Europe. That's how it is. Now, if the government was running McDonald's, there'd be 2 choices of burgers available every second Tuesday. That's how it is, folks. It cannot work any other way. So you tell these Liberals, when they're 75 years old and enjoying their retirement and playing with their grandchildren, and they get prostate cancer or whatever, and they go to get their $100,000 worth of treatment, see how they get on. Because they won't get it, I'll tell you. Unless they've got a backroom deal going or pay a bribe or something. And that's how American medicine will have to be run. There will always be 2 tiers. The rich will always get treatment, but the rich will be the corrupt. Now, basically, Democratic Socialist America gave you Obamacare. They worked through a whole bunch of organisations, through the unions, to push this for 40 years. Now, the real key man behind this, the father of single payer, is a man called Quentin Young. Now, he's a retired physician out of Chicago. He's pushing 90 now, and I often wish he'd gone to live in Britain 15 years ago, because he probably wouldn't be with us now. No? But he is. And he's enjoyed your health system while he's trying to wreck it. He's set up numerous health organisations, Physicians for a National Health Plan, worked with the AMA, worked with Canadian doctors, worked with people like, John Conyers. See, they pushed this for many years. And they put bills in front of your Congress on many occasions, but it always failed. And it was only in 2009 with the Affordable Health Care Act they made progress. And it's no surprise that the progress came under Mr. Obama, because for many years in Chicago, Quentin Young was Mr. Obama's personal physician. has openly claimed credit for indoctrinating Obama into the ideas of single-payer healthcare. But more than that, Quentin Young was a 40-year veteran of the Communist Party USA until he left that organisation to set up Democratic Socialists of America. A Marxist indoctrinated your president into the system. And to prove a little point, before the 2012 election, the Obama campaign released a little video that was designed to mock Mitt Romney. They said, hey, guess what, Mitt? You know how you hate Obamacare, and you're the author of, you put your name on Romneycare. Well, ha ha, Mitt, the joke's on you. Because the man who designed Obamacare for us, a Massachusetts state legislator called John McDonough, he designed Obamacare, and guess what, Mitt? He was the man who designed Romneycare. So, ha ha. What they didn't say, well, Mitt Romney got that bill, that's right, it came out of the Massachusetts state legislature, which is shot full of Democratic Socialists of America supporters, and he basically tried to modify it and push it back, but he got stuck with it. John McDonough was the man, all right. What the video didn't say was for many years, John McDonough was the chair of Boston Democratic Socialists of America. A Marxist. So a Marxist designed Obamacare, another Marxist from the same group personally indoctrinated your president into it, and a whole bunch of Marxists from the AFL-CIO and physicians for a national health plan promoted it. Democratic Socialists of America gave it to you. And now they're out there now waiting for it to collapse so they can make it single payer. They're openly writing about it in their publications. You know, 7,000 people are about to change your country forever. And they cannot be allowed to do it, folks. We've got to make every stand against it we can. Now, the other big burning issue of the day, comprehensive immigration reform. Okay? Now, we're told by certain people in the GOP, like Mr. Lindsey Graham from next door, who I hope you will put all your resources into getting rid of.
Yes.
Help your neighbours on that one. And John McCain and certain Marco Rubio, etc., have tried to tell you this will be good for the Republican Party, right?
Yeah.
Because all those illegal immigrants, if you give them voting rights, they're all going to start becoming staunch Republicans, right? Voting for the GOP all the way. Yeah, right. You know, just like the 90% of the black population in this country, they're all going to start voting Republican, right? The 80% Jewish population in this country who voted Democrat for 100 years, they're all going to change in a hurry, right? Now look, this is driven by the left. You know, you've got the Republicans pushing it, some of them, and they tend to be the ones in the pocket of the Chamber of Commerce, which has spent $1.7 billion promoting this in the last 10 years. It's easy to see what they want. They want cheap labour to run their factories and farms. That's all they see. They don't give a damn about the border security or the national integrity of your country or the future politics of it. They're just out for the money. But the real drivers of this is the left. Now this movement started back in the 1950s in California. It was a man called Bert Corona, leading member of the Communist Party USA, also a leading Democrat. He set up the Viva Kennedy clubs in the Democratic Party in the 60s, the first organised effort to bring Latinos into the Democratic Party. He also basically fathered the immigrants' rights movement. He set up a whole bunch of organisations through California and the Southwest to encourage illegal immigrants to come across the border, to get them jobs, get them green cards, and get them citizenships. And this was a deliberate communist program. Now he had a whole bunch of mentors that he trained. He trained hundreds of people, and 3 of them are very active today. One of them is Antonio Villagrosa, who was until recently mayor of Los Angeles. a hardcore Marxist-Leninist, trained in Cuba as a young man. He turned Los Angeles into a sanctuary city, forbade the LAPD from enforcing immigration laws, and the illegals flooded in and changed the demographics of Southern California. One of his comrades was Gil Cedillo, another Marxist. He was head of the Senate, California State Senate until recently. He got the DREAM Act pushed through in California, which gave a whole bunch of rights to the children of illegal immigrants. The third member of this little triad, and they all work very closely together, is Maria Elena Durazo, currently the leader of the California AFL-CIO, most powerful woman in that state. She, another Marxist, she is behind the massive Latino voter registration drives and get out the vote efforts that have totally changed the politics of California. California, which was once a reddish, purplish state, is now solidly blue. All done through Latino voter registration, illegal immigration, and get out the vote. All a Marxist program. And what is the goal? The goal is the Electoral College votes of California, your most populous state, all firmly in the hands of the Democratic Party now, totally locked up. Very important in any presidential election. Now you go to Arizona. A man out of Arizona called Lorenzo Torres died at the beginning of last year. I would say the most successful politician to come out of that state in 50 years, and I bet you've never heard of him. He was the head of the Communist Party USA's Latino Commission. His job was to set up immigrants' rights networks throughout the Southwest, from Texas to Colorado, to lobby and agitate against any attempt to crack down on illegal immigration. He led the charge against SB 70 in Arizona a couple of years ago, which the battle he fortunately lost. He was the man. He also set up a movement in Arizona which gave you 3 Communist Party affiliated congressmen in your House of Representatives. Raul Grijalva, Ed Pastor, and the freshman Kirsten Sinema. All Communist Party supporters, all elected out of one of the reddest states in the Union. Now, the third man who's active today, he's the leader of the movement right now. He's a man called Eliseo Medina. Was until recently the executive vice president of the SEIU union. Biggest union in your country, one with the biggest Latino membership. You would have seen him many times on TV in his purple shirt, leading immigration rights rallies. He is the leader of the movement today. He's worked with Raul Grijalva, Luis Gutierrez, out of Illinois, the congressman who's driving this in the House, a former member, incidentally, of the Puerto Rican Socialist Party, a pro-Cuban Marxist-Leninist group, driving this in the House. Medina is also a member of Democratic Socialists of America. He is also a former member of Obama's Latino Advisory Committee. He has been getting union members all over the country to lobby your congressman over the last several months to pass an immigration bill through your House. He is driving this 100%. And to prove a little point, which organisation in this country 20 years ago was the most hardcore against illegal immigration?
Unions.
The unions. They were constantly lobbying Congress to increase penalties for any employer caught employing illegal aliens, because they correctly saw that illegal immigrants were unfair competition for their members. Logical from their point of view. Today, which organisation is leading the charge to legalise and give voting rights to illegal immigrants?
The AFL-CIO.
The unions. What's changed?
They need the money.
They need the money, they need the members, but what changed most effectively was in 1995, DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, took over the labour unions. Because before that, they were there to represent the interests of their members and give their union bosses nice holidays overseas. Okay? But after that point, after 1995, they were there to promote socialist revolution. And illegal immigrants are not good for union members, but they are bloody good for socialist revolution. That's why they've changed 100%. And that change was engineered by Eliseo Medina. After several years of effort, he got it passed at the AFL-CIO's convention in Louisiana in 2000. And it ain't easy to get union members to vote against their own interests, and he has got to be credited with a big sales job, because he did it. A Marxist. Now, why does he want it? Part of it's the members, but the most important point is this. A couple of years ago, Medina was at a big conference, big progressive conference in Washington, D.C. He got up in front of the comrades and told them why he was pushing this. The number one priority for our movement, comrades, is an immigration bill. We have to pass an immigration bill. We have to give citizenship and voting rights to 11 million illegal immigrants. And did he talk about compassion, reuniting families, reinvigorating the economy? Not a word. All he said was this. He said in 2008, Latinos voted 70% for Obama and progressive candidates. If we stand by these people and give them citizenship and voting rights, they will stand by our movement. That will give us at least 8 million more Democratic Party votes. That will give us a governing majority, not just for the next few election cycles, but for the foreseeable future. In other words, a democratic one-party state. Because if they have 8 million more votes, folks, Texas goes blue, the Southwest goes blue, Georgia goes blue. And you take the electoral college votes from Texas alone, combine those with the electoral college votes from California, it makes it mathematically impossible for the Republicans or any conservative party to ever win another presidential election. Ever. It's gone, folks. At that point, it's gone. At that point, you don't become like Europe, you become like Venezuela, then like Cuba. That's what it's all about, people. And you have traitors in the GOP trying to tell you this is good for the Republican Party. As I understand, folks, there's a lot of libertarians who want to open our borders and let everybody in. And I can understand in normal times, I sympathise with that. But these are not normal times, folks. If this happens, the Democrats rule this country forever, and they aren't ever going to give it up. Ever. This is one party state if this happens, and this is what it's designed to do. Why are the Marxists pushing it, folks? For democracy and freedom?
No.
Because it's their road to totalitarian rule. And those immigrants are just meat in the sandwich.
Yep.
They don't give a damn about them. They're using them. Now, so this is where it's heading, folks. Now, the other thing in my book is really about... Now look, is there anybody here who's ever applied for a non-military federal government job who's willing to admit it? Okay? I understand. Look, if you apply for a federal government job in this country, you need a security clearance. The FBI goes through your underwear drawers. Okay? Your childhood friends, your associates, any dodgy uncles you might have had, overseas trips, political affiliations, radical affiliations. At least they were up till recently anyway. And that's fair enough, you know. You might be in a position of trust one day. You might be guarding a nuclear facility. You might have valuable information in your control or the ability to influence public policy. But what happens, people, if you're a bit of an old radical, or even a new radical, and you put on a suit and tie, and you stand for Congress, and your union buddies to back you, and you get in, and you get put on the Armed Services Committee, or the Intelligence Committee, or the Homeland Security Committee, how much clearance do you need for that?
Nothing these days.
Nothing. Zero. Because the people are supposed to vet the candidates, right? And the media is supposed to help them do it, right? How's that one working out for you?
Not too good.
Look, if you're a foreign intelligence officer from North Korea or China or Iran or Venezuela or Cuba, and you had a whole bunch of union mates in this country and communists who had the ability to get one of their sympathisers elected to Congress, would you be doing your job if you didn't take advantage of that?
Nope.
If you knew there'd be no security check on that man, and that he would have access to all sorts of government documents and could prowl around every government archive there is, and have the ability to influence policy in the direction you wanted, would you take advantage of that? Damn right you would. And they are. I will tell you straight, I would say there's at least 100 members of your House and 20 members of your Senate who couldn't pass a basic security clearance to clean the toilets at any military base in your country. And neither could your president. You know, John Conyers, 50-year association with the Communist Party, went to DSA conferences last year and he's serving on the Judiciary Committee. Chairman of it, I believe. Judy Chu, some of them are obvious, like Barbara Lee. Huge association with the communist movement. Been to Cuba more than 6 times. Mel, what's the name here? Closely associated with Democratic Socialists of America. Patty Murray out of Washington State, long time association with the Washington Communist Party. Raul Grijalva used to write for the Communist Party publication. Danny Davis, Jan Schakowsky, Jerry Nadler, all card-carrying members of Democratic Socialists of America. Rosa DeLauro out of Connecticut, big-time friend of Nancy Pelosi, who was also a long-time communist associate, is best friends with the head of the Connecticut Communist Party, the woman entrusted by the Communist Party with liaising with the Democrats, the daughter-in-law of a Soviet spy, no less. Judy Chu, wonderful Chinese lady out of California. Looks like butter would melt in her mouth. You folks remember the Greensboro massacre? So 79 in North Carolina here, not far away. Now in California, going to China all the time, building bridges between China and America. When she's over there, she calls herself a true daughter of China. The Chinese press describe her as their representative in America. You have 100 of these people, folks. Not 3 or 4. There's 100 of them. I profile 51 members of the House in the book and 14 senators. If I did the whole lot, the book would be this thick. But I've tried to do some of them. Do you think there could be a problem?
Yeah.
You can fix everything. You can fix your economy. You can fix education. You can fix everything. But if you have 100 members of your House and 20 members of your Senate who are basically working for the other side, where are you going to go? Now, I don't want to depress you folks with any of that. Or bring you down in any way. Okay? But you're the Tea Party people, folks. You're here to know the truth. You're the people who can accept the truth. You think many audiences could handle what I've just said? Well, they wouldn't believe me. Even if they did, they'd just walk out. But okay, now look. If I thought there was no hope for America, I'd be back in my beautiful New Zealand right now, building bunkers and stocking up on baked beans. Okay? That's what, I'm not mocking prepping, believe me, at all. You should all be doing it. We don't know what's around the corner. But look, this is the way I look at it. In 2008, the left thought they had a slam dunk. They had the House, they had their Senate, and they had their man in the White House. And their agenda was already written out, And they were going to steamroll Middle America out of existence once and for all. They were popping the vodka corks, folks. They thought they had it in the bag. They were so bloody arrogant. But in 2009 and 2010, something miraculous happened. Guess what that was?
The Tea Party.
You guys. Because you guys came out of nowhere. You came out of left field, or should I say right field. And you took them by surprise. You took me by surprise. Where were you all these years? You know, most of you are working for a living. Most of you didn't give a damn about politics.
No.
But you got involved because you had to. Because you saw the writing on the wall. You guys, you imagine, look, I've talked to Tea Party, I've talked to over 200 Tea Party audiences. And I always get the same message. It's tough going. It's a thankless task. The Republicans lie to us. People ridicule us. Are we making a difference? Yeah, look, had you not done what you did in 2009, where would this country be now? You blogged and you marched and you emailed and you agitated and you rallied and you, not the GOP, took back the House in 2010. And you know what you did? You brought the agenda of the left to a grinding, screeching halt. You took it off them. They had it in the bag and you went away and stole their lollies. You stole their toys off them. And some of you wonder why they hate you. Why they call you dirty names. Look, folks, they had socialist revolution sewn up. And you stopped them. You saved your country. You've got to give yourselves a pat on the back for that, people. You really do. Some of you may not see that, but I'll tell you what, people from overseas see it. Because we can see, sometimes when you're outside the battle, you can see it better than when you're inside. You can see the significance. But I'll tell you what else you did, people, maybe even more important. You kick-started the Second American Revolution. Because there are more people in this country now who understand the Constitution and the separation of powers and American exceptionalism, what makes America different than at any time since the Revolution. I go to the bluest of the bluest states. I've spoken to 600 people in Michigan, folks. 500 people in Massachusetts. You go outside those big cities and there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people just like you. All over this country. And they weren't there 10 years ago, people. But they're there now. They're there right now. You have fought back Common Core. You have altered state houses all over this country. County commissions. You have put the wind up the GOP like you cannot believe. You know, and one of the most important things, all those state houses you have changed all over this country. You know better than me. This is not a unitary state. This is a federation of states.
Yes.
And you have enabled states, your states, to give the finger to the federal government.
Hey.
Isn't that a good thing? You have slowed down the agenda of the left so much. I was at a progressive conference late last year in Washington, D.C., Institute for Policy Studies. I write about it a lot in my book. Marxist, pro-KGB ties, Cuban intelligence ties, you name it. They write the policy for the Obama administration. They are bad people. Now, I went to that conference, their 50th year anniversary, put on my little badge, paid $75 and I mingled with the Marxists. Okay, me and Cliff Kincaid. All day, you know, oh, I know him, yeah. It's good to put names to the faces, you know. And I went there because I wanted to see what they were talking about, what their plans were. And I got bored, folks. Because all they talked about all day was bloody well you. Tea Party this, Tea Party that. The Tea Party took that office. They took this office. They stopped us doing that. They stymied this. All day, Tea Party, Tea Party, Tea Party. All day. Sometimes, folks, I don't think the Tea Party knows its own strength. You're sort of like babies with huge muscles, you know? Because you have made a huge difference. And America's fate depends on you. Because you look, who else is going to save this country? Anyone else? I don't want to put a big responsibility trip on you folks, but you just got to look at reality. How America goes is how the world goes. And how America goes depends on people like you. Right now. Now, I'm going to do something now that this is pretty bad manners really, because you don't come into someone else's country and tell them how to do things, right? It's a bit like going to your neighbours and telling them how to do their decor, isn't it? But I get asked this all the time, what, from an outsider, what would you be doing? Because I see a movement now in flux. You know, you've had some victories, you've had disappointments. You've elected people, they've let you down. You're hanging together, but you're not really sure where to go now, or what the best course of action is. You know, some people want to form a third party. Some people want to just do local issues. Some people want to take over the GOP. There's all sorts of avenues. Now I'm going to say what I would do, and you can take it or leave it, you know. I'm just looking from the outside. Now, I've basically told you, you have 2 election cycles to save your country, okay? Now that's 3 years, right? But under 3 years. Because if the Democrats win again, it's going to be pretty tough. Real tough. Because they're going to get those 8 million votes, and that's going to make it hard. Now, so whether you like it or not, you're looking, okay, who's going to stop the Democrats to at least get them out of power? Because that's the first thing that has to be done. When you got cancer, the first thing is to cut out the tumour. Then you start to recover. And that Democratic Party is a pretty big tumour right now. Okay? To put it mildly. I'm not, you know, it's a bit unkind to tumours, but it is. Okay, so you got 2 elections. Now there's only one political party that can stop the Democrats realistically in that time. A third party ain't going to do it in time, folks. It ain't.
No.
It's just reality. If we had 20 years, I'd say go for it. Absolutely. Okay, so there's only one party can stop them, that's the GOP. But the big question is the character of that GOP. Because if the old guard wins, and they give you a fat boy from New Jersey, or a Jeb Bush, you're going to lose, folks.
Yep.
And even if you fluke a win, you still lose.
Right.
Because progressivism just rolls on.
Yep.
But, and nothing's guaranteed here, but if you had a man say, and I'm not picking your people, but I'll pick one who's a front runner right now. If you had a man say at the caliber of Ted Cruz,
Yes.
things could be very different. Now, if I was, okay, now I'm going to go back a bit. 1976, right? You've been losing your freedom, Republican, Democrat for years and years and years. Every government got bigger and your freedom got smaller. And a man came out of California that year who was real sick of that, Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
And he stood for something different. He stood for a lot of the things you stand for. The American Constitution, revitalizing your economy, standing up to the Soviets, America being a leader. And the people rallied to him in the hundreds of thousands. They loved his message. It was a breath of fresh air. And they pushed him forward to get the Republican nomination in 1976. And guess what the Republican old guard did, folks? They hated him.
Yeah.
Hated him all the way. Fought him every step. every step. And they managed to get Gerald Ford the nomination that year, just beat Reagan, and Gerald Ford went up against Jimmy Carter, and Carter won. And how did those Carter years work out for you folks? You know, gas queues round the corner, interest rates up to here, Iran, Panama, all those good things. Great years, weren't they? But the really important thing is this. In 1980, the grassroots did not give up. They got behind Reagan again in 1980, and they pushed even harder this time and got more organised, and this time they forced the GOP to give them their candidate. Forced them, and they did have to force them. And Reagan went on to sweep the country in a landslide. The GOP old guard couldn't believe it. Swept the country in a landslide, and he changed this country so much for the better. Anyone going to argue that proposition?
No.
He couldn't do everything he wanted to, especially in that second term with George Bush one on his shoulder. But he made a huge difference to the character and just the feeling of this country. The economy, revitalised it, stood up to the Soviets. He did so much. So that's where you are, folks. You are now in 1980, and your choice is what you do. But I'll also digress another little point. Now, we're always told, right, that we've got to get the young on board. We've got to get the young people involved in the movement and fighting and whatever, because this is a grey movement, you know, be honest. And to do that, the Republicans will tell you you need a cool, hip candidate with liberal values and a nice haircut. Right?
No.
Look, I go around the country, airports all the time. I often wear my Ronald Reagan badge. I've had 16-year-old girls with crazy goth haircuts come up to me and say, "Wasn't he great?" Wasn't he great? How do you think I'd get on with the Gerald Ford badge? Not quite so good. The young people love idealists. They love people who make a stand. They love people who stand for something and will fight. You look at Ron Paul. He's young and hip and he's got a nice haircut, right? He's a grumpy old bugger. Okay? But no matter what, you know, I have some disagreements with him, but on you know, the economy, on the Federal Reserve and all those things, he stands firm. Totally true, all the way. And who loves Ron Paul like a chocolate? The young people. The colleges are full of them. The young love people who stand up. People who are consistent, believe in something and won't sell out.
Yeah.
Now look, so that brings us to now. To win the next election, right, you need every element of that old Reagan coalition. Because they're going to have vote fraud. The media's against you. You know, you're going to have so much opposition to win, you're going to need every single element of that old coalition. Plus, you need those 1% young libertarians who voted for Gary Johnson last time. You need the fiscal conservatives and the social conservatives. The defence conservatives, the mainstream Republicans. You also need the 2 million Republicans who stayed home last time, who could have won the election for you.
Exactly right.
And you need, I'll tell you who you really need, you need the 4 to 6 million evangelical Christians who don't vote.
Yeah.
You need them all, people. You cannot afford to ignore any of your base. Karl Rove did it last time, went for the independents and spat on his base. And guess what happened? Guess what happened? And guess what will happen next time if he's allowed to do it again?
Amen.
Okay, now if I was, this is what I would do if I was a man like Ted Cruz, right? I'd be getting in now, early, before Christie and Jeb Bush get up ahead of steam. And I would know that I have to build that coalition. And every person in that coalition wants something. Everybody's turned on by something. So I would do this. I'd get a team together now. I would go to Alan West and I'd say, I want you to be on my VP ticket. Right?
Right.
Then I would go to Rand Paul and I'd say, I want you libertarians on board. I want to make you Secretary of the Treasury and you can do what you damn well want in the Federal Reserve and the IRS. And I'd go to Sarah Palin and I'd say, I want you to be Secretary of Energy. And you can drill, baby, drill. And I'd go to John Bolton. I'd say, I want you to be Secretary of State. And you know who I'd go to be ambassador to the United Nations?
No one.
No one.
Yeah.
Then I'd go to say, Dr. Ben Carson, Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Yeah.
Then I'd go to Mark Levin, Attorney General. You can think of them all, folks.
But he
You
wouldn't
can
do
put
it.
a dream team together. And for those conservative Christians who so value the education of their children, I'd go to them and say, you vote for me this time, Dr. David Barton will be Secretary of Education. And Common Core is gone. Nationwide. Would you get enthused about a team like that, people? Would you get out of bed every morning and campaign your little butts off? Get your friends involved? Would that rally the base? It would get everybody, folks, and do you think it's possible?
Yeah.
It is possible, folks, because you have got the greatest base of constitutional conservatives and libertarians this country has ever seen. And you've got those proven leaders out there who know what needs to be done to turn this country around. You've got the base, you've got the leaders. Put them together now, soon. Because if you do that, what the hell is the left going to do to counter that?
Right.
What do they do?
Hillary.
Look, last time, Sarah Palin under McCain, she got beaten up. Nobody came to defend her. You try beating up 10 or 15 hardcore patriots like Alan West and Rand Paul and Mike Lee and Ted Cruz. You try it. They would come out swinging.
Oh yeah, they would.
So that's what I would be doing. You've got to get into that GOP and take it back. It's already half completed. You don't have to get them all, folks. If you got 6 more Rand Pauls and Mike Lees into the Senate next time, 6 more another 20 or so good conservatives into the House, you would flip the whole thing.
Right, exactly.
And the rhinos would be in a minority and they would just follow along like good little sheep. That's what they would do. Just like they did under Reagan.
Yeah, but they'd still be stupid.
They'd still be scheming, folks, but your people would be running things.
That's right.
And you just keep going doing that and get rid of them one by one. Okay? Because you can do it. They don't own the GOP, you own it.
Yeah.
You're more in tune with the Constitution and the platform of the GOP than any rhino is. So what the hell are they running it for? You've appointed some directors to run your company, they'll run it into the ground, and you're going in to put some new directors in. That's all it is.
Amen.
The cheek of them to think they own it, Now, so you go, what I'm saying, folks, is you've got 3 years. I'm asking for 3 years because 3 years is going to decide the fate of not just your country, but the Western world. Now, if you've got a choice. You can play more golf or hunt more ducks, or you can get stuck in and do 3 more years. Because you've all done 5 years, and I know how burnt out you are and how hard it is. I've got no illusions about what you've gone through, right? But I'm asking for 3 more years, because if you give it 3 more years, the very least you will get is the ability to look your children in the eye and say, I did everything I could. What's that worth to you, folks?
Everything.
Everything. And if you win, which you can do, you'll give them not just the country you inherited, but an even better country.
Yeah.
The greatest country that's ever existed. And you'll start not just a freedom revolution in here, you'll fire a freedom revolution across the planet.
Yeah.
Do you not think we will follow your lead? Damn right we will. We're watching you now. It's bubbling up everywhere now. It needs the leadership. And if America can you win back your freedom here, we can win it back in our countries too. Now, I know it's tough. I know it's not easy. You give up a lot. I was down in Morristown last year, in New Jersey, up in Morristown. I went to the encampment there that the troops wintered in 1780. The harsh winter of 1780. 10,000 troops started. There were 6,000 by the end of the winter. Death and desertion got rid of the rest. The officers were eating their pet dogs. The troops were raiding the local farms, who hated their guts, by the way. And the troops were boarding up their own boots to eat them. And that wasn't just one winter, that was every winter like that. But they persevered. For what? For some dream that they knew nothing of. Do you think those troops had any understanding of the country they were creating? Do you think they had any idea? You know, when your troops lost most of their battles, they were chased across every state that existed then. They fought all the way. They were beaten many times. But finally, they staged a surprise attack at Yorktown and they took the British down and they won. And look what they gave you. Look at the amazing country. A bunch of farmers and lawyers and blacksmiths and seamstresses and fishermen took on the greatest military empire the world has ever known, and they bloody well beat them. How miraculous is that? I get a favourite quote from Goethe. If you are bold, powerful forces will come to your aid. Well, the French came to their aid, but you know there was a lot more than that. George Washington, he understood how miraculous his victory was. He knew that. And do you think if you are bold, powerful forces will not come to your aid? Do you think if you fight and strive, things will happen that you can have no idea of today? Do you think it will be deserted?
No.
You will not, folks. But you have to be bold. You've been bold so far, and I want you to be a bit bolder for a bit longer. And I think you can all do that. Now we look, you know, when you're in the battle, folks, it's real hard to see. You can't see the forest for the trees. It's really hard to see your place in history. You look at those troops back in the 1780s, we can see their place in history now. We can see what they did. Do you think they could see it then? They just worried about eating and surviving and dodging bullets. But they had a vision and they had leadership. But they didn't know their place in history. But if you want to see your place in history, folks, you go forward 200 years. Think about that. Some young kid in a high school in this town will get up in front of a civics class and say, guess what, guys? You know how we've studied history and we studied the 2 American revolutions? You know that second one, when everybody thought the country was done and the people stood up and they took back their country and they restored the Constitution and they gave us the liberty and prosperity we enjoy today. We've all read about it, right? But I did something. I studied my family history. And I found out, this is amazing, I found out my great-great-great-great-great-grandma and granddaddy, they were in the Charlotte Tea Party. North Carolina. So that's your place in history, folks. That's your role. So I just want to say to you folks, thank you so much for having me here. Thank you for what you're doing for your country and my country and liberty. God bless you all and God bless America. Thank you.